I know you missed us. It's another wonderful episode of Advice from the Heart. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank Agency, and I am joined by the wonderful, the incredible Christopher Hart. How are you doing, Mr. Hart? Chris, sir.
Sir, I'm doing well, Garrett. How are you doing? How's parenthood treating you?
Parenthood is excellent. I got a 7-month-old who sleeps through the night, and I sleep like a baby as well. So I'm excited to talk to you about feels relevant is networking and public events where you're actually going face to face. The pandemic happened, people were doing all the virtual things, and so now, for the last 6 months to a year, more like marketing and SEO events are coming back, and you've been going to them. You've been doing it for a while. So I want to kind of pick your brain about what is different with marketing events post-pandemic. Kind of what do you anticipate? What do you think it's like?
That's a good question, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of people who in some way, shape, form have their own version of pandemic PTSD, right? So there's going to be a lot of that happening. As a person who worked a lot of trade shows, right, and has gone and walked a ton of them, right? I remember SEO trade shows were like, like I'd be there and I'd be like the only guy not wearing black Velcro shoes with and people with khaki pants. And now you have really polished business individuals and executives showing up to these events. And I think you really need to treat your event as valuable as the audience you're commingling with, right? A thing I always felt was the really important part of networking events or trade show events. Like, the education is awesome, and they do a lot of education to bring people in, right? But the relationship building is really the important thing. So I'm going to an event coming up soon here in New York, the Bodify Connect event, right? They're one of our partners. And I'm looking forward to it because, yes, I've been to mega conferences and I've been to single track conferences or micro cons or mini cons, right? And I really do like these company sponsored focused events, right? Many people spend or are unable to figure out what track I need to go to,
Right.
who I need to talk to, what birds of a feather thing do I need to be part of. Events like this really allow the attendee to pre-figure out why they're going, right? And if you're going for educational purposes, that's awesome, right? And that's a great value add, right? But for this one, I've already made a handful of outreach conversations to a number of people that are going to be there. I've set up a handful of potential meets already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Both at the event and let's grab coffee or sandwich outside the event. I'm going to record a few snippets so we can bring it back and use it for some of our stuff as well, right? Because it is a cool thing. But I think you need to really respect the relationship and the time of the person you're talking to, right? Like, you need to treat that conversation as if it's the last conversation that person's gonna have, right?
Right.
They're there to meet people just like you. They're there to learn, and you've gotta, I get it, there's gonna be food and sometimes some free drinks. That's really not why you're going to a conference. That's why after parties are for, right?
Well, to that point, I mean, it's like so on the one hand, you have the folks who are going purely for education, but a lot of people really are either going for buying, selling, or just mutually beneficial partnerships, right? Building those relationships. So like you've kind of have your plan of action. What are your goals? What should your goals be to come out of this networking event? Like, do you have any going in?
Yeah, oh yeah, must. Otherwise you're flotsam and jetsam and you're just kind of like, And then at the end of the day, if it's a paid for event, your manager's like, so what'd you get out of it? Where do I show return? Right? Like, you've got to account for some of that. So for me in this case, I'm looking to expand the relationship with this particular vendor. So I want to meet certain people from the company to allow them to see the better side of what iPullRank brings to the relationship, or the additional things they may not know just from the glossy cover, right? And from that, I also want to build relationships with people that are using the particular piece of software. We do a lot of work with that software. We've learned a ton of things in using that software. And I think the buy and sell part almost needs to be paused for a second, right? And if you could find a way to make, and I like odd numbers, 1, 3, 5, good connections where you can give before you ask for, it's a totally different level of maturity in the relationship building process versus, hey, give me a call, I can help you with that. Like,
Right. Well, what does that look like? Is that like an introduction to somebody? Is that like what are you giving?
It could very well be like, oh, you're having this problem. I know somebody that could at least listen and know how to maybe advise you in what you need to do, or just tell you what has to happen, right? Like that, any way you could in the network or build the relationship by adding value versus taking value at first, you're in good shape there. And that people will remember that, because everybody that shows up there is going to be like, somebody's going to ask them for something or want something, or can you give me, what do you think, right? And generally speaking, if you're the one that's open and clean and clear with transparency, and you're about giving to the relationship before taking from the relationship, you'll quickly do two things: build a good relationship or eliminate a potential time suck. Because if all that person does is take, then you don't have to waste any time. So, it's like the filter. It's like your built-in qualification, right? Qualifying round, right? How much does this person value what I'm about to do for them in order to build a relationship?
So and a lot of these conversations will happen in different venues within the event, and you can be spending your time talking to one, you can talk in groups, and obviously, as you mentioned, you plan a lot of it out. How do you kind of imagine the ratio of balancing these networking events and actually spending your time? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, don't stand in one spot waiting for people to come to you, right?
Yeah.
Some of the best relationships I've built from a needs help standpoint that tend to lead to a sales longevity standpoint are, I'm sitting in an educational track or I'm in a conversation and I hear a person ask a question. If I have commonality with that question, that is a great icebreaker, right? And you can have a couple other throwdown comments or what you want to do, but I generally lead with, hey, my name's Chris and I am blank. And a lot of people know who I am, but it also is a very common conversation when you come up to a person and say, I really like that question, or I understood why you did that, and I thought this, and the answer you got was great, and that person was really smart, right? You're not doing anything other than helping to reaffirm or identify commonality. And at the end of the day, we all want to be heard. We all want to be part of a thing. We all realize that trade shows and whatnot can be a grind, man. Like you work a trade show where it's like 3-4 days and the floor is like 1,000 booths everywhere, and you're sponsoring an event, you got to go to your vendor's event, you got to go to your client's event. I remember those days, and I long for those days to some degree, right? They're fun, they're really fun. But I come home from a trade show, and I'm talking about the difference between a big trade show versus like a company-sponsored event, right? And I come home and I'd be like, okay, I need 3 days to just like
Nobody at
no,
all.
like I can't talk, right?
Yep.
You know,
It's emotionally exhausting. I remember I told a boss, because I was doing trade shows for a few years too. And I was like, you don't have to worry about me going out at night, like after the trade show where people are like partying. Cause I was like, if I'm on the floor talking to people all day, like even if I'm in a really cool city, I didn't have the stamina to like
right.
continue on outside of like, the nice little social event. Cause you
Yeah.
do see people, kind of go nuts. I'm curious, what are some of your other tips, having done this for so long, to maximize your experience, to really get the most value out of it? Like, do you go and do you email someone right away, right after the event? Or are you like reaching out down the line? Like, how do you make the most of your events?
Yeah. One, I would say dress like you want to be addressed, right? If like, and I'm not saying you gotta like
To the
whatever, but
nines.
yeah, don't be to the nine, but like you represent your company, right? And you represent your own value. So project that, right? Project that value to some degree. Um, I also went out an awful lot after events at trade shows, so I have a lot of weird trade show stories I could share, but we'll save those for other days. Maybe for a different podcast. But you do try and make your contacts ahead of time, right? If it's a multi-day trade show, I would probably usually have like 4 or 5 meetings set up each day, booked on the calendar before I get there, whether it's a person coming meeting at the booth, whether we're going out for lunch or something, whether we're going to the sales room to talk, whatever, it's a great time to take if it's a big show, it's a great time to take your clients around and network your clients to vendors and partners that can help them as well. Remember, you're not just bringing value with the service you provide, you're bringing value through your network and the people that could help your client in service of what you're trying to do, right? So that's very helpful. And clients remember that, right? And
Yeah.
Not everybody's there for the steak dinner. A lot of people there are actually to get the work done. In the follow-up, days themselves have changed. Like, you used to be like, everybody drops a business card in a bowl, right? And then it was the come by and I'll scan you and fill out all this stuff in the scanner based upon what you're saying, and then it went off into some CRM and whatnot.
Do people even still have business cards at this point? I hope I'm not out of date when thinking that like it's kind of silly to have a business card, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, look, if you're in the real estate industry, like you get that card with a big face on it, you know, I get, look, there's value for cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have a pile of them on my desk I need, but I'm not walking around handing out cards. Like flip, 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 right? Like a card gun.
Yeah.
I would, like I said, if I'm talking to a person right there, I would say, hey, let me hit you up with a text message right now, or all right, let me just shoot you an email so I got the contact in here and we could go back and forth, and then exchange right there in that moment, right? The thing of making a deal and closing a deal at a trade show, if you are working a long, sales process and they're ready to sign, it's a great thing. Sign in the booth, right? Magic happens, make a deal, right? But most good relationships take time. So don't expect to walk away with, I signed 25 people. I would say I walked away with like 5 greats, 9 maybes, and like 12 back burners, right? You know what I'm saying? And manage it that way. And yeah, don't be the guy or girl leaving your card everywhere. I don't think to your point, I don't think people use cards anymore. Maybe I don't know. I'm waiting for the time we all show up with like, metaverse.
Yeah, exactly. What's your avatar?
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. I think there's a lot of great insights there, just in terms of make sure that you're providing value before you're trying to take. Always be a giver.
That's number one. That's got to be number one, right? Give to the people you want to get from.
Exactly. Make sure that you plan it out and have people that you want to talk to and book meetings throughout it. Make them maximize your time. And then
Yep.
the one that I really love, the takeaway at the end is just that, you know, your clients are really important. I every time I've had met a customer at a trade show and built on that relationship, you know, it's not always just about acquisition. It's about serving your clients and also
Right.
building those relationships too.
Very, very true. I mean, all three of those are very valuable acts, and I think if you get good at doing all three of them, you'll have perfected a really good trade show routine. And what you fill in between there is your own thing. But those three pieces offer value at the end of any trade show or event.
There you have it. Post pandemic, you are ready to go out and network with the advice of Chris Hart. This has been another episode of Advice from the Heart with Chris. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank. Thank you again, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Anytime, buddy.
We'll catch you.